Let's talk, shall we, about the cost of living crisis. I know that affects pretty much all of us now, doesn't it? You know, people are saying things like they can't afford to even keep their pets because things are getting out of control. And I worry, have to say, that things are going to get a whole lot worse. So what can be done about it? People always look to the government, don't they? You know, the government should do more, it should do this, it should do that. It's not doing enough. Government, meanwhile, are talking about things like potentially changing childcare, talking about tinkering around with MOTs, looking at food tariffs and things like that, which is all well and good, by the way, but I'm not somebody who likes to just focus constantly on the government. They should do this, they should do this. I like the government, quite frankly, to be involved with as little as possible. So I start then thinking about business. And I am a capitalist. I don't mind a bit of profit. That is indeed the purpose of a business. But these are exceptional times, aren't they? They're not your everyday kind of trading period. So do you think that businesses should be doing more? I've got to start, I think, with you, Ben Habib, because I personally think nothing against profit making. I celebrate it, actually. But people are really struggling, and we've not seen anything yet. You know, we're going to see more impact from the sanctions in Ukraine and the war in Ukraine, and a whole host of other things going to make it so much harder for people. Ofgem rises up in October. Should businesses be sitting there looking at themselves and saying, do you know what? We'll take a hit to our profits for, I don't know, 6 months to try and help our customer base?
Well, it's a very interesting point you make, and one of the great advantages of living in a free market economic world is that actually businesses have to respond to the changing welfare of their client base, their consumers. And they have to adjust their prices to make sure that they themselves stay in business. So this is a generalization that I'm about to make, and I don't want to be shot down because there are specific exemptions to it. But generally, businesses will respond to straitened times by cutting prices, by making it easier for their customer base to buy their product. That is not universally true, of course. There are some businesses that make money out of misery.
Oh, Ben, I'm astonished that you've said what you just said with a straight face, because I'm on your side of the fence, and I'm in the camp of business. But the fact that you say that there's some businesses that, you know, might kind of take advantage, but on the whole, most of them will kind of act sensibly, I think it's completely the opposite way around. I would say that actually right now, most businesses, you know, lots of them have had hard times through COVID. They're seizing the opportunity to raise their prices. They're masquerading under this cloud of nonsense. Oh, it's inflation, it's RPI, it's this, it's that. I don't doubt that those things are having an impact, but the price increases that we're seeing, more often than not, they're far outweighing those factors.
You know, remember, businesses are not protected by the price cap on fuels. Some businesses have seen their cost base go up 200 or 300% as a result of the increase in oil and gas prices, whereas consumers, even though they've suffered terribly, have had the benefit of price caps in place protecting them. I mean, the real issue here, Michelle, I'm sorry to come back to it, but the real issue here is that governments experimented with the biggest economic... the governments embarked on the biggest economic experiment in history, which was the lockdown of the country, the lockdown of the Western trading world, by and large. And that's what resulted in a breakdown in supply chains. That's what resulted in the massive inflation we're now experiencing. And it is really down to government to sort it out. Actually, I don't think the problem is going to persist for as long as people say it's going to persist. And the reason I say that is because we haven't got the massive increase in interest rates that most of these other inflationary spikes typically come with. And we're not going to see massive increases in interest rates because we've got very loose monetary policy and we're hooked on it.
What do you call a massive interest rate, though?
Well,
we're certainly going to see rate rises.
Go back. I'm not going to guess your age, but when I left university, you know, we had interest rates of between 10 and 15%.
Oh, yeah, we weren't with that.
And that's what I call a really significant... So when you see interest rates go from 7% to 15%, which was not an unusual move in straightened inflationary times in the past, we will see interest rates go from maybe, you know, 0.5% up to 1.5%, 2%. It's going to be much, much more muted. And the other point I want to make is that the fuel-induced impact on the economy and inflation, that is going to pass relatively quickly. We're going to wean ourselves off Russian gas and oil with the exception perhaps of Germany, fairly quickly. We're going to... The OPEC countries are already pumping more oil and gas. We're already looking for other avenues for resources. So I think by the middle of next year, actually, we should see the worst of this behind us. And I think it would be a mistake to actually be taxing or instituting taxes on businesses, if that's the suggestion of how businesses might pay more. I think to use this as an opportunity to tax business more into the medium and long term, I think would be a mistake, because actually businesses themselves are still suffering from the ill effects of lockdown. The private sector is still suffering. And remember, the private sector's just been hit by an increase in national insurance on employers' national insurance, and the private sectors are going to be hit again with increases in corporation tax rates. All at a time when the Treasury...
Yes, you may.
Sorry,
just God blimey.
It's reaching a crescendo, I can tell.
Have I ruined
the Treasury's got a record tax take. The Treasury's got a record... I'll stop there.
There you go. There you go. Austin.
I've got nothing to say. I just wanted to stop him. No, I think... No, well, there's two things to this, isn't there? One is that, you've mentioned at the very end the war in the Ukraine and the impact that that's going to have on recessionary forces in Europe, and you can see what's going to happen with Germany. It's already going to happen with Bulgaria and Poland by stopping their oil. But in terms of the developing world, or what used to be called the developing world, may now be called the non-developing world, the impact is going to be devastating, not just in terms of grain being sent from Ukraine to third world countries, but, and that's going to stop, through to their ability to kind of gain oil and actually develop, because oil is an essential factor. We're not going to be discussing just stop oil, but actually we realise in this day and age that actually oil is such a fundamental part of our development. So I think that, personally, I'm more pessimistic than you've been. I think that we're just seeing the start of something which is going to be really, really devastating for the economy, for our living standards, for the peace and stability within Europe. We've already seen Liz Truss, another one going for leadership, talking about a 10-year war. I don't know where she got that from, but the idea that this is going to be a long, protracted war of attrition, with Russia fighting back and stopping oil. Whatever we might have visions of wind turbines in our gardens, the fact is we rely on this material to have a dynamic economy. And I think that's fundamentally where we need to go, because what we haven't had on the agenda for the last 5, 10, 15 years is a productive economy. There's been very much a savings economy, maybe making some benefits down the back of a sofa by kind of saving money left, right and centre. But ultimately, to invest in new industry, in new technology, in new ideas, that seems to have been off the agenda, even under the Tory party. So I think that's where we want to really be encouraging our thoughts, rather than just kind of backing off and trying to have windfall taxes here, there and everywhere.
See, Emma, what I want to see a little bit more of is Asda, Morrisons, some of these supermarkets now have essentially started a price war. So you've had Morrisons coming out, for example, and saying, we're going to slash prices on this, or we're going to hold prices on that. Then that's kind of almost had a domino effect. You've seen other supermarkets saying, guess what, we're going to reduce this, we're going to reduce that. And I think good. More of that, because you guys are still making a fortune. I don't begrudge you that. Good luck on you.
Free market economics.
I know it is, but what I'm saying is I'm a believer in responsible capitalism, not irresponsible capitalism. Don't batter people when they really are having a hard time. Emma?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think the difference quite often when you talk about responsible or irresponsible capitalism is actually short-term versus long-term effects. I think that there has been far too much short-termism in capitalism and in business for a long time, and that's partly been because of the way that we have set up in terms of business being legally obliged to maximise shareholder profit year on year, rather than having much better longer-term interest. And I think the supermarkets that engender customer loyalty by looking after the people when they're in need will actually be the ones who come out of this 5-10 years down the line much stronger. I think consumers are really starting to understand the power that they have. And I think actually when we are making choices, and when we have so many choices we can make because we're buying things online so much more now, I think actually we are going to reward those businesses that behave well.
Yeah, in terms of loyalty, you mean? Customer loyalty?
In terms of our loyalty, and in terms of, I'll buy from you, I won't buy from you.
Because they're all looking for a deal, because inflation's going up and we're all being screwed. I don't see the upsides in this. I mean, you can celebrate business, nice businesses versus hard-headed businesses, I don't mind it.
I mean, there's no such thing as nice business.
Pleasantly exploitative or not so
But
bad
I think
businesses
exploitative.
are amoral.
hard-headed can be a
No,
long-term
they're not.
Yeah,
strategic
businesses are amoral. They are.
Amoral. I thought you said immoral.
No, amoral.
Oh, right.
Amoral. They're not good businesses or bad businesses. Some are run well, some are run badly. But by the way, there is something new going through business called the Environmental Social Governance Standards, which most businesses are adopting. My own company's adopted it. And that obliges businesses to have an eye on the environment, their social impact, and as well as the way they're governed. So there is things businesses are doing anyway.
And there is I thought this, I was just checking my thought process. The B Lab, the B Corporation, you can get certified now that you're a good business under one of these schemes, and I'm sure that there's lots of others where they talk about the impacts for good that a business is having, not just
It won't surprise
profit.
you, though, Michelle, that a lot of what's defined as good, you might also define as woke. It won't surprise you to know that businesses are being infected by woke as well. And I think ESG is an admirable thing to be adopting, but a lot of people are using it as an excuse to advance their own personal political agendas through business. And that is bad.
Yeah, of course. I mean, don't even get me started on that topic. That's a whole different one.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.